Hey, Clemson family, we are catching up on a recent commit for the Tigers football team for 2025. It's a big man. We'll get into what he can add to the group.
I'm Daniel Shirley. We'll also preview the offensive line. And Bill, you know how I love to talk about offensive line and big men. So I'm really excited about this.
Not a lot happens on offense without good blocking up front. It's why it's almost half the guys on the field. I am Bill Zimmerman. Welcome to the Reign Supreme Always podcast. We are, by the time this posts, we will be inside, I think, 75 days to kickoff of the football season. And we love talking football around here. Baseball is wrapped up. I don't know about you. I don't want to pay too much attention to what could have been in Omaha, quite frankly. Good to see Florida State tears flowing again after that first game. I had a little fun with that. I'll admit it. YouTube.com/Clemson Kickoff for the more informative stuff. You can catch all our past episodes breaking down the football team, the basketball team, the baseball team. It has been an exciting year on campus in Clemson. And I am already looking forward to not just this season, but a season out because the recruiting class looks so freaking good already right now. 12 commits with the recent addition of Rowan Byrne, offensive lineman out of Rochelle, New York. New Rochelle, New York. 2 News. 6'6" and 295 is his average height and weight if you look across the four services. And now the third offensive lineman to commit with Matt Luke. And, I saw a tweet the other day where someone said, hey, 3 commits now for Matt Luke since he joined the staff in December. No, it's actually 6 because he had to hustle and get 3 guys in the door for the 2024 class that's already been signed. There was only 1 guy committed when Luke took the job. So this is now in a very short time frame, the half dozen commits on the offensive line for Matt Luke moving forward. They all have good size, and you really like to see this hire for Dabo Swinney making an impact in the talent that's coming into the program.
No doubt about that. How many times since we've been doing this podcast have we talked about the weakness at offensive line and that was one of the key points that needed to be addressed. I know the quarterback play has been a downgrade, I guess is the nicest way to say that, from what we had seen before with Trevor Lawrence and Deshaun Watson, even Kelly Bryant, right? Played better than what we've seen the last couple of years at quarterback. But the decline, quote unquote, of the Clemson program starts up front, and there's no doubt about that. And you're seeing Matt Luke really address that. And Bill, we've seen him at other stops, what his offensive lines look like. They are big, they're physical, they're mean, they're nasty, and I'm here for all of it. I am a Matt Luke disciple. I am all on his. I'm all for him. I love what he's doing with this program, and I think it's going to help get things going back in the right direction. You look at the guys in this class, Braden Jacobs and Easton Ware, and now Rowan Byrne. Look at the sizes on those guys, and you mentioned the 3 at the end of the previous class. They were all big, physical guys who looked like they could even add some more to their frame. So I think that's going to be important going forward.
Yeah, I actually need to go back. Easton Ware has been committed for so long. I should probably check and see if there are more updated heights and weights on him. His father is very active on social media. Braden Jacobs and his father are very active on social media. And that just sort of helps build that momentum for this group, I think. And I don't know that Matt Luke needs a ton of help because his resume speaks for itself, but you love to see, Brandon Jacobs, a former NFL guy, and other parents out there who just love what Clemson has to offer for their young men who are about to leave the nest and go out and find their own way. And that Dabo Swinney has a program where they not only can become better football players, not only can get in better shape, they can truly learn to grow and learn into being a more independent adult than they're already becoming along the way. Blake Hebert, another one, the quarterback out of Connecticut, again, very active on social media, making things happen. Get Ian Davidson out there on social media, bringing guys in. Tay Harris just tweeted earlier as we were recording this. He's a great follow on social media. You want to see these guys. Ari Wofford, his father, They're very active on social media. I could go on and on and on. We are going to try to get, oh, Juju Preston. I saw him on Twitter earlier today. That's what's happening. And I think that excitement specifically for the offensive line room is going to make a big difference. I think it's something we didn't really see under the past two offensive line coaches. I think, even before Caldwell, it just wasn't, that much of an element to recruiting the players and the families getting out there and tweeting the way that they do now. I love seeing this. I love that Matt Luke is fostering that kind of atmosphere in his room and among his guys, and the players who are coming here on their official visits, on their elite junior day visits, and all these other chances to come to campus, they see it, they feel it, they talk about how genuine it hits home with them. And when you have those guys, you love to see them get in the door, and you can't wait to see them perform on the field as well. So glad to see this commit. I think we're going to see a few more coming across this summertime season. A lot of guys are making official visits. By the way, there is another offensive lineman out there by the name of Hardy Watts, very highly regarded. I just saw him in an on-3 top 10 for interior offensive linemen. He has canceled visits to Duke and Boston College after making his Clemson visit, and I believe one other. Could see a decision out of him coming up soon. It might bear watching closely. I've seen some crystal balls, not a high level of confidence on those. That momentum, again, keep it going, keep it going. Is David Sanders going to remain a prospect and going to remain a focus then if they were to add a fourth offensive lineman, whether it's Watts, whether it's somebody else? This group making gains is going to be very big. And we're about to preview offensive line, and you'll see just why you and I think this class is so important. YouTube.com/Clemson Kickoff. You can check out our past episodes. I'm going to pull that down off the screen. We're going to move into the next segment of our show. By the way, you can catch us on Twitter in between episodes, at Clemson Kickoff, Instagram every now and then. You'll see us posting on there as well, other socials too. Now, let's go ahead and take a closer look at this offensive line on the field for 2024 and who is coming in. And Matt Luke being such a focus. Daniel, you mentioned during the Georgia preview just how much of a fan you are, but go ahead and touch on that a little bit as well.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of his. I mean, just what he's done everywhere he's been. And I know the head coaching gig at Ole Miss didn't work out, but you look at his resume, you look at his history, what he did at Georgia to get that offensive line group headed in the right direction is remarkable, because that was the change in what Georgia needed. Georgia under Mark Richt had good quarterbacks. They had good skill guys, but they never could win in the trenches. And, as far as at the highest level, they won a lot of games, and they won in the trenches in a lot of games. But when they got to the highest level, they couldn't get that done. Well, Kirby Smart, when he took over, he started to change some of that, and Matt Luke was a big part of that. And you've seen that success these last 3 years and what it's meant to that Georgia team. We talked about Dabo Swinney and his staff kind of being in a rut 2 years ago, and this program being in a rut, and it was going to take some big moves to change that. And we've seen that with Garrett Riley, probably the best OC out there who was available. And we saw it with Matt Luke, who was probably the best offensive line coach who was available. So that's what we're seeing with this coaching staff, and we'll continue to see that moving forward.
I am, again, really impressed with Matt Luke, what he's been able to do already. I don't want to set the expectations too high for what one offensive line coach can do in one off season. We've seen it with other programs. I mean, Florida, Miami, Florida State, all three of those offensive lines were down at the same time. You and I talked years ago. When was the last time we saw that? Florida still hasn't figured theirs out. Miami still hasn't figured theirs out. Mike Norvell came to Florida State with a strong offensive line resume, brought in an assistant who also was very accomplished and maybe a little too accomplished in connecting his players with NIL, as it turns out. But it took them a couple of years, even with all they were doing on the field and apparently off the field, to make that unit turn around. It took a lot and it took time. But I don't think this group needs to make huge gains in order for the Tigers to have a better offense this year. pardon me, you talk about analytics and how just a little bit can make a big difference. I think that's what you're looking at with this offensive line group. I don't think we'll see a ton of freshmen. I had a sneak preview there of our next topic, and we'll try to keep this kind of hit and move, maybe sort of lightning round because Daniel, I don't think other people want to talk about offensive line as much as you and I want to talk about it, even though we admittedly are not offensive line coaches. But when I look at the freshman class that's in here, I don't know that I see anyone who's going to be like, hey, that guy's going to step up and start the way Mitch Hyatt did. It may be more of an emergency situation, and it may take multiple emergencies to get one on the field. Is Elijah Thurman, though, that guy if they need one?
Oh, he's a talent, man.
Yeah.
He's a big time talent. It's just I think this is more of a depth play for this year, right? Look, there's not a Mitch Hyatt in this class. That's it took forever to get the class together at the offensive line, and Matt Luke was such a big piece of that. Are these more projects? I don't know if projects is the right word,
No.
but I do think it's more of a depth play for this year and get them some experience. And I think there's enough talent there, Bill, to get them some experience that they can build something off of this year and have a foundation. Whereas in the past few years, it felt like if Clemson played that 8th, 9th, 10th guy, it was more of a stretch and a big drop off. I know they're freshmen. It's going to be a drop off, but talent wise, I think they can fit their playing time with what they can do, with their talent. So I like this group. I like what Matt Luke was able to do. It is more of a future group than immediate, but I like what they can bring to the team depth wise, not playing big time minutes in big time games.
Yeah, I think if we see anybody, it'll be in the second half of the season. And it may, I'll tell you, I'll give one caveat to that. If someone comes in and can really execute the pulls and the other things that are in Garrett Riley's system and do them well and be that chess piece in the right place at the right time, even if they're not in perfect, physically sculpted form like you would like to see, they may be able to sneak in there and get some playing time. So at center, also would be an opportunity if someone is coming in. I don't think anybody saw an actual center coming in as an immediate impact guy in this group. So you're hearing a lot about Ryan Linthicum and Harris Sewell battling out for that job. You know the old quarterback cliche, if you have two quarterbacks, you don't have any. Is that the case at center?
It might be. This is, in my mind, this is the biggest question mark up front for this group is who's going to be the center. I haven't seen enough from Linthicum yet to say he's the guy. I mean, look, he's been around for a couple of years. I don't know that he's been in shape to be the guy, and I think he's got to work on that. He was a big time recruit. I mean, he was a big time get in the recruiting rankings.
Right.
But we know that some guys develop later than that immediate impact, and he could be one of those guys. If he is, that's great. But this is the biggest question mark, I think, Bill, maybe on the entire team is who's going to play center.
Yeah, I kind of lean slightly. If Sewell were to get the job, I might be just like 3% happier. I love that he just took over at all-time center in the spring game and got a lot of reps because I think that would be valuable for him. You look at the tackles, I think everybody has confidence in Tristan Leigh and Blake Miller. The question is what comes after that. But boy, these are two guys who are very capable.
No doubt about that. I don't know that either of them had a great year last year. I think they were pretty good. Right. I think they both had some moments where you go, what are they doing?
Yeah.
But I think the talent is there. And I think, again, Matt Luke coming in can develop that talent and make these guys what they were supposed to be when they got to this program and developing. We know recruiting is big, but developing is just as big a piece of that puzzle. We haven't seen that as much with Clemson's offensive line the last few years.
Right. You get into the guards. You've got Walker Parks, who you hope is healthy, and he's been medically cleared to return to action. You've got Marcus Tate, who has done a fine job, I think, when he has been healthy, especially when he was called on unexpectedly as a freshman. I think when you grade on a curve, you had to be proud of what he did. And then you saw late that year and the following year how well he could play. Clearly, Sadler has just injected some, What do you want to call it? What's the stuff that Steve Rogers was on in Captain America? He's got a little bit of that, doesn't he?
He's mean. I like it. I mean, I want to see my offensive lineman just be mean and physical, and I don't know how many times I can say that, but you know, that's what I'm looking for from him. And again, we'll find out about the freshmen and where they fit and those kind of spots. But if those guys can get it done, I think Clemson's offensive line could be in a really good spot.
Yep. I think the big key, and honestly, the tackles bring this to mind. Maybe center a little bit last year. The tackles bring this to mind more to me than anything. Is fewer busts. Like, look, there were I would say on a majority of pass plays, Klubnik had plenty of time to operate. Maybe to the point where he even took that for granted a little bit. But then I think there was also, even though it wasn't most of the plays, it was too high a percentage of plays where there was just no time for anything to happen. I mean, it
Right.
wasn't even like, oh, should have had another quarter second, should have had another half second. No, like someone was on you right away. And that just can't happen. Or it can't happen with the frequency that it did last season.
It's going to happen, right? I
Sure.
mean, everybody's going to make mistakes. The other team is going to make plays too. I mean, the other team's pretty good. Most of these games, they're on scholarship as well. So, but you can't let the bust happen, right? Where as soon as Cade gets the ball, there's somebody on top of him. That can't not happen. And we saw it in the Florida State game, the big bust we know about with the sack, the fumble recovery, and the touchdown, scoop and score that
Yeah.
really changed that game. Probably changed Clemson's entire season, at least for a couple of weeks. Certainly changed Florida State's season. They're not what they were at the end of the year without beating Clemson. So, that can't happen again. That's got to stop. Now, who was that bust on too, Bill? We're not, offensive coaches to know, was that on the quarterback? Was that on the running back? Was that on the offensive line? Who was it on?
Right.
But that can't happen anymore.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of these plays, and we saw it a few years ago, Clemson, Florida State, where they just weren't even chipping the defensive end that lined up over the right tackle, and two handoffs in the red zone were disrupted. And I'm not a big fan of that scheme. At least chip a guy, put a hat on a hat. I know you got to get moving. I know you got to get in motion, but does that mean the running back was lined up in the wrong spot? Should he have been on the other side of the quarterback to safely get a handoff? Was somebody supposed to go in motion and get that guy? Where was the breakdown? And to me, just guys coming through absolutely untouched. That's got to be something that changes quite a bit. So let's get into the. I'm going to lump.
If that at one point, if that's the scheme to leave a guy unblocked to get a running start at your quarterback, that's not a good scheme. I think it was a bust more than it was a scheme.
Yeah, I think so too. I'll lump these two together. The class of 22 with Miller and Sadler, the class of 23. Now we have Reed and Sewell remaining for that. And I kind of foreshadowed that these are two important topics. Like, you've only got four young guys in the last couple of years who aren't your pure freshmen, who are really there and ready to contribute. I mean, this should be their peak time, and they're having to deal with a new coach. Now, I think almost all of us agree that, at least X and O wise, not personally, because Thomas Austin, great individual, by all accounts. I've been enjoying, by the way, I think I mentioned this once before, but I've been enjoying listening to his long form interview with Larry Williams on the Clemson Dubcast podcast. If you are interested in that, you definitely want to make time for that on a road trip, running errands, whatever, check that out. These are the four guys who really have to pivot hard and embrace what Matt Luke is bringing into this program and kind of be that infusion of youth and find a way to step up. I mean, we've seen plenty of Miller, Sadler, and Sewell. Ian Reed was dealing with some injuries last year. You'd like to see him healthy and able to contribute, but they're going to matter.
Oh, no doubt. I think this is the core of the offensive line right now, is these four guys, and obviously Tristan Leigh and whoever becomes the center
Yeah.
that we talked about. No, I think that these four are huge. I think they probably were expecting Reed to help them last year, right? And we know unfortunately he had the health issues. So we'll see what he can become. I don't know that we expect him to be ready right at the start of the season, but it sure would be a nice bonus if he could give the team something. Obviously, we're more concerned about, the young man being healthy.
Yeah.
That's way more important than ever playing a single game of college football. But if he's on the roster and he's healthy, he could be an important piece moving forward.
Yep. And you certainly also, I don't want to let these guys go unmentioned. Dietrich Pennington, Trent Howard, both have a lot of talent, both have a lot of potential. You'd love to see them step forward and make tracks as well. Run blocking. I think this is going to be the biggest thing of all. I think that we didn't see as much out of Will Shipley as we could have last year had the run blocking been better in what Garrett Riley likes to call his dirt raid scheme. He doesn't want this to be all passing all the time. So get the assignments down better. And frankly, with Maffa being a bell cow, you want him getting through the lines with minimal touches and able to get some yard after carry. I mean, I'm not going to say the 2016 line was all world or anything like that, but look how many times Wayne Gallman had a crease where he could slip through and not take a significant hit before he could get into the field and turn something into 4 yards or 7 yards in just a key situation. That's what I want to see from Maffa. And I think Maffa maybe has just a little bit more breakaway ability than Gallman if he's able to get into space 4, 5, 6, 7 yards past the line.
Well, and remember, even in the 2015 season, the game against Oklahoma, right?
Mhm.
And in the bowl game, and they they ran up and down the field. Now, a lot of that was Deshaun Watson, but Gallman had a huge game in that game, and they just Oklahoma could not stop this running game. That's been a while. So you do want to see that that those guys up front get the job done, and this is a huge piece to that. I think Maffa being the lead guy, nothing against Will Shipley. We love Will Shipley. But I think Maffa being that lead guy in this system might be a better fit just because, a little bit more physical, a little bit bigger back. We'll see. But I like having him back. We would love to have Will Shipley back too with another year in this system. But I like having Maffa back. Hold on to the ball. Hold on to the ball. Can we say that?
Yeah.
He had a couple of key fumbles last year that we remember, the Duke game, even the end of the Notre Dame game. But I think the end of the Kentucky game kind of bodes well for what Phil Maffa can be in this offense.
Yeah. And then we'll close the episode out with this. I think, again, looking at items 4 and 3, their performance this year is not just key to winning games this year. It's also going to be high stakes for this recruiting class and for 2026. I mean, you want to keep this class of 2025 with the 3 commits they have so far in the barn, so to speak. You also want to start building momentum early with the 2026 recruits, because with a small remaining class of 23 and also a small class of 22, you are talking about a definite need to bring guys in. And when 24, like we said, didn't have those immediate impact guys, maybe 25 is going to need to. You're going to want to see some battles in there. And without a doubt, we have not seen Clemson gain a ton of traction in recent years in offensive line recruiting. You want the performance to be able to enable Matt Luke to say, hey, I don't just have to sell this. All I have to do is show this to you.
Well, that's the key is yes, winning games this year, but continuing to add talent to your roster is how these teams win and stay at the highest level. And look, I mean, we talked earlier about the recruiting class so far this year. I think they're off to a really good start. I think they're going to sign a couple of more guys. You mentioned David Sanders. David Sanders is an oversigned guy. If he wants to take it to December, you sign as many guys as you can before then. But if he says, hey, I want to come to Clemson, come on.
Yeah.
You take him. Even if you've already signed 6 offensive linemen, you take 7. I mean, that's how good he is. So I think you continue to stack talent on top of talent on top of talent. That's how these top teams win. How did Nick Saban win? When guys left, there were 5 stars sitting behind them, or 4 stars, or talent, or whatever. How did Kirby Smart win 2 straight national titles when they lost so many guys off that first team? Because they had a bunch of talented guys right behind them.
Yep.
That's the key to building and continuing to build. And Dabo Swinney knows that. And he's done it. I mean, there's nobody been more consistent during the Dabo Swinney's tenure than Clemson. So they know that, and I'm sure they will continue to get that done.
Yep. And maybe we'll even start to see some player rotations. I mean, all my concerns about center aside, let's get some guys in there getting regular snaps and build some depth, build some true depth, not just depth that's been discussed, and let's see it play out. So catch all our past episodes, youtube.com/Clemson Kickoff. We've got the new ClemsonKickoff.com website. Tires ain't pretty is kind of my design theme there. I'll admit it, but we've got some cool features in there. You can check out our recent episodes. You can also sign up for email updates so that you'll be getting notifications someplace that's maybe a little more convenient for you than in this app as well. You can catch us audio only on YouTube Music. Hopefully I can start dropping some of these back into Apple and Spotify if time's going to allow me to do that. That's something I would love to do. I know we reach a good chunk of people there. Next episode, we will get into special teams. This is a position rankings, by the way. I didn't mention that, but O-line came in our two-man vote tally as, well, we're going to start with them because they got the longest way to go to improve. Special teams is going to be next. And then we're also doing team-by-team previews. Georgia should have been posted by now, and I think App State will be coming up next, and we'll work our way through the whole schedule. So stay with us, check everything out. And until our next episode, I'm Bill Zimmerman.
I'm Daniel Shirley. Go Tigers.